Are you like many photographers who love the autumn season because of the vast array of colors that make for dynamic and overall just stunning photos? I'm sure you answered yes, so as a photographer, you really only have two options. Option one is you can actually go out to those locations, waste your time, hoping that you're gonna be catching the fall colors at their peak, or make better use of your time, increasing your chances of photographing the fall colors at their peak for the best photos. In this video, I'm going to reveal to you all the ways that you should be preparing so that you can get the best fall photos this season. Now, the timing of fall foliage changes year by year, so even if you live in a location that is well known for its autumn colors, it's still very important to understand how weather, location, and altitude can affect the changing of the leaves. Peak foliage is the time of year where the colors of the trees are at their brightest, and that is usually anywhere from early September throughout early November. And that is affected by what your sea level is, so your altitude, how close you are to sea level, and where you fall on longitude, so how far north you are. So as I go through this video, think about where you're currently at or where it is that you're trying to shoot, and apply these tools to that scenario or that location. And along with knowing where you're gonna be going and the longitude, latitude, and altitude of that location, you should also get to know the trees a little bit better too. And the reason I say this is because different trees actually change at different times. They do this because each tree has its own genealogy. For example, aspens, their root systems might be connected and they might be clones of each other. So it only takes one tree to set off a domino effect where all the other trees connected to that main tree that changed will all change at the same time. And this happens as nights start to become cooler, days become shorter, and each tree's genealogy adjusts to those weather conditions. I'll explain this real quick. The green pigment, chlorophyll, slowly breaks down in the leaves. Without the green color, other leaf pigments become more visible, such as oranges produced by carotenoids, yellows produced by xanthophyll, and reds produced by anthocyanins. They should make those names harder to pronounce. And it's good to know this because it helps you figure out what to expect at the location you're going to. What kind of trees are gonna be there determines what colors you're gonna see. The US Forest Service actually has a list here of what tree produces what color. And that list is oaks producing red brown, hickories a golden bronze, aspens and yellow poplar are a golden yellow, dogwood a purplish red, sourwood and black tupelo is a crimson color, red maple is a brilliant scarlet, that's kind of cool. Sugar maple is an orangish red, and black maple is a glowing yellow. Once you know what type of trees are in your area, now you can start forecasting for the fall colors. And speaking of forecast, we're gonna start off with weather. Weather plays a huge role in the changing of the leaves. Cooler nights and warm sunny days bring the brightest of colors. Sunny autumn days up the sugar production in the leaf. And then when it gets cool at night, those veins will actually close, and they'll close off at the stem of the leaf, so that the sugars don't leave. And this is amplified if your weather during the summer is a lot more favorable, and this will give you guys the most prominent colors in that location that you're looking at. On the contrary, late springs, dry springs, summer droughts, and warm fall days can actually prolong the leaves from changing for up to a few weeks. But we don't just want to keep looking at the temperature. There's a lot of other factors, high winds being one of them. I remember I drove 10 hours once to get to Fish Lake, and that is, I believe, in Utah. This was back in 2015. I got up there at about midnight. It was dark. I set up camp, went to bed to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and this was listed as one of the most beautiful places to photograph the aspens. Woke up, and every single tree was de-leafed. Everything had fallen off 3 nights before. I drove around the entire lake, stopped at one of the convenience stores, and asked what happened, like this is supposedly peak season. Now, I didn't do any research before going there, so I made that mistake, but this was early on in my landscape photography career. And the guy at the convenience store told me that a big windstorm came through about 2-3 nights prior to me getting there and knocked all the leaves off the trees. So high winds and even rainy days can really affect the turnout that you're expecting. So as you're keeping up with the weather and you see that there's lots of rain happening or there's lots of rain coming up in the forecast, that means less sunlight getting to those leaves, meaning more dull colors are gonna be happening that fall. I shouldn't have said that as an absolute. There's a high chance that they're gonna be a lot more dull. And of course you have higher elevation versus sea level. Now I am in Maryland, so I am pretty much sea level. I'm on the coast. I'm gonna be going to Colorado next month to photograph the fall colors, and I'm gonna be anywhere between 8,000 and 10,000 feet. Fall there is gonna be happening within the next couple weeks. We're gonna start seeing the peak colors. Whereas here, we may not see the peak colors until November. Simply, higher the elevation, colder the temps, sooner the leaves are gonna change. Closer to sea level, the warmer it is, the later the leaves are gonna change. And that's why in September in New England, you have the fall colors starting to make their way through the Appalachian Mountains. And by November or late October, they're finally reaching the Great Smoky Mountains. And that has to do with longitude and altitude, like I spoke about earlier. So besides just looking at weather apps and figuring out what the weather is going to be like for the next 7, 10, 14 days, what other tools can we use to see what the fall foliage is like in the location that you're looking to go shooting in? Most states have a tourism board, and along with that tourism board, they have a hotline, and that hotline is usually a fall foliage hotline. A great resource is leafpeepers.com. They have a huge list of numbers that you can call to figure out what the update is on the fall foliage there. And if you plan a trip, I recommend calling every day or every other day, because the leaves could be green one day and then the next day they could be at their peak. It just is all based off of environmental circumstances. Now, if there is no number, or you just don't want to talk to somebody on the phone, there are fall foliage websites in most states where you can actually Google your state's name or your location's name and look up fall foliage. And a website should pop up that usually has a fall color report and map, as well as some basic information on the best times to go and what they're expecting for that season. And let's say you don't trust either of those two options, there's a website called EarthCam where you can actually go and look up dozens of locations around the world and watch live cams of a lot of the most popular locations, so you can actually track in live, real time, whatever you want to call it, what the fall foliage is looking like in a particular state or location. And that's something I recently just found out about and will be using a lot this fall. There's a few other types of ways that I'll scout a location. One of them is Google Maps. I'll type in the location that I want to go, and then I'll search the images and I'll view them by latest and see what people are posting on there for that location. And you do have things like all trails and things like that too, where you can search the area. I don't really do that for fall colors unless it's a specific trail though. Another one is searching the location on Instagram to look at the most recent images. So very similar to what I do on Google Maps, just doing it on Instagram, since a lot more people are posting there, and you might find a lot more images that are taken closer to the day that you're searching instead of maybe a few days ago or a week ago. And one of the coolest ones is Google Earth and doing 3D scouting of a location. The mere fact that I can go to Google Earth, type in a location, be brought to that location, see it from 3D, and even drop the little Google guy on that location to have a in-person view and a 3D view. That's one of the best ways to set up a composition, see where the lighting is gonna fall. I highly recommend using that if you're gonna use any of the online options as far as Google Earth or looking at Instagram, but really you should use them all. The thing is, even after learning all the productive ways that I taught you how to plan your autumn photography trips, you still need to go to those locations, and that means you may want to learn a thing or two about photographing fall colors. That key information will be out next week, so make sure that you subscribe so that you get notified when that video comes out.